Hello, my name is Dr. Julia Kim, and I'm the Program Director of the Gross National Happiness Center in Bhutan. Together with my colleagues, I have the happy privilege of really trying to focus on global goal number 10, reducing inequalities. So it's my real honor to be able to announce that the 2021 Flourish Prize for goal number 10 is being awarded to an alternative banking app called Dave, based out of Los Angeles, California. Dave's motto is banking for humans, and this banking app lets users eliminate overdraft and account balance fees. It's also providing financial literacy education and budgeting features to help low and moderate income users manage their money. So big congratulations to Dave for global goal number 10, reducing inequality.
Hi, I'm Megan Buchter. I'm the director of the Fowler Center for Business as an Agent of World Benefit at Case Western Reserve University. At the Fowler Center, we run a program called Aim2Flourish that strives to teach students around the world about the UN Sustainable Development Goals and businesses' role in helping to achieve them. As part of the program, students seek out and interview business leaders and social entrepreneurs, and then write stories about their amazing companies and business innovations that are solving the world's toughest challenges. Another aspect to this program is that we award the annual Flourish Prizes. So every year we look at all of the stories published in the previous calendar year, take them through a process with a jury and a process of elimination and a rating process, and we end up with 17 winners, one for each of the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. Today, I am very honored because I am here today with our Flourish Prize honoree team for global goal number 10, reduced inequalities. So I'm here today with our professor, Jeff Thies from Loyola Marymount University, two of the student authors that worked on the story, Kiara and Morgan, and Lauren from Dave, our honoree company for global goal number 10. Thank you so much to everybody for being here with me today. I am so looking forward to this conversation, to hearing from all of you and learning more about Dave. Jeff, I'd love to start with you and ask you to tell us a little bit about how you've used Aim2Flourish in your classes and the results that you've seen.
Well, first, thank you very much. We're deeply honored by this recognition, and I'm very proud of the work of Dave and the work of our students in both recognizing that and bringing that to Aim2Flourish and to this really important program. I am the director of the Institute for Business Ethics and Sustainability at Loyola Marymount University, and we seek to really focus on the important understanding of business as a force for good and really understand the moral imperatives of sustainable development and engaging inequalities and really focusing on the important role of business to advance justice and reduce inequalities is an important dimension of how we understand the responsibility of business and frankly what we teach. One of our capstone courses is a senior level course called Business Ethics and Sustainability. And it was within that course that we used the project Aim2Flourish. And what's really important about that is that it gives students the opportunity to have direct contact with businesses and business leaders and hear the story, be inspired by the innovation and the leadership of these businesses, and then be able to tell that story in a way that helps them connect with it and really be inspired by it. And so for them to be honored now through this incredible recognition of this Flourish Prize and the global recognition is really just absolutely wonderful, and so thrilled that we've been able to do this.
And so, Jeff, I know that you actually found Aim2Flourish because you were looking for a way to incorporate more of the global goals in your classes. Is that correct?
Yes, the College of Business Administration in 2018 became signatories to the Principles for Responsible Management Education, which is a UN initiative that is for business schools what the Global Compact is for global businesses, to commit to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and then embed that in both business and educational practices. So we were looking for a mechanism that would enable students to really do a deeper dive on understanding the global goals and really seeing the relevance of them to business. The other piece that's really important about Aim2Flourish is its focus on leadership and the way in which, especially the dimension of quantum leadership and this recognition of leaders driving change to accomplish the goals of the 17 goals is really what we wanted to highlight and identify. So we became aware of Aim2Flourish and have really embraced it, and been really thrilled at how it's been so impactful.
Thanks. And I just also want to mention that I think it's very exciting that, we're here talking about global goal number 10, reduced inequalities, because even though I don't think it was through this class, but through another initiative, you have students actually focusing specifically on that goal with their Aim2Flourish projects, correct?
Yeah, so we launched a Promotion of Justice Challenge, and we used the Aim2Flourish platform as the introductory process for students to identify and tell the story through the media arts of corporate practices that advance justice and reduce inequalities. So we find it really a wonderful experience and process for lots of initiatives.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to point that out because I think that Loyola Marymount University has this really special focus on global goal number 10, and here we are having this conversation together with our Flourish Prize honoree team from Loyola Marymount University. So that's just this really exciting connection. Kiara and Morgan, I would love to hear from you about your assignment. You received the Aim2Flourish assignment, and and then what? How did you find the company that you were going to interview?
I can take that question. Hi, I'm Morgan Brooks. I'm a recent business administration graduate from Loyola Marymount University, and I'm actually currently seeking opportunities in finance, but especially at sustainable and ethical companies through this project. Because a lot of our group members were finance oriented, we were really interested in looking at sustainable banking companies, and Dave, I think, is at the forefront of that. Their extremely ethical practices really inspired us as a group. And so when we got a hold of Lauren, that was like an amazing experience for all of us. And we honestly, it made us rethink banking in general and how that can be done.
Yeah, and I can sort of go off of that. Hi, my name is Kiara Armstrong. I'm also a recent graduate in finance from Loyola Marymount University, and I'm currently working as a financial analyst at Hulu in their subscriptions department. And I totally agree with what Morgan was saying. As we had a lot of finance majors in our group, we really wanted to do something finance oriented. And I know for me personally, why I kind of chose to be a finance major in the first place was because of a lot of my experience with some of the inequalities of banking and how it's not necessarily accessible for everyone. And it can be really, really tough if you don't feel comfortable. And financial literacy is just so important for everyone to have and isn't always something that everyone gets taught. So I think that's something that all of us kind of resonated with. And we were really happy when we found Dave and what they're trying to do with providing that and making banking more accessible for everyone, not just those who already know what they're doing.
So you all probably know this because you've studied those global goals in your class, but under each global goal are targets and indicators for those goals. And actually for global goal number 10, reduced inequalities, the very first target has to do with financial inclusion. And so that makes me really excited about this conversation and about Dave being our Flourish Prize honoree for this goal. And so I think everything you just said, Kiara, is really important. And it's kind of exciting how you saw that target. You were all, studying finance and then really came and found this organization to write this story about. So before I, launch into talking to Lauren and let her introduce Dave, I just want to know from our students, what was the interview like? What was your favorite part of getting a chance to do the Aim2Flourish interview?
I can start with this one. I think for me, I didn't know too much about Dave going into it. We'd done our preliminary research, just knowing sort of what the company is about, but hearing some of the things sort of the background of it. Especially Lauren told us a really cool story about why the founder sort of started it, a personal story about him, which was really great to hear. And just hearing like more about sort of all of the things that Dave does. I feel like we knew sort of the main points, but there are really so many ways that Dave is and is going to in the future continue to help people access banking that I definitely didn't know about. And so that was just a really cool opportunity to get to hear sort of all of the aspects that Dave is doing, and also just expose some of the things that I didn't know because I haven't, experienced them personally, about how banking can truly be so difficult for those in different groups, whether that you have a disability or anything like that. Banking can really be something that's really stressful and not something that's easy. And so that was really important. And I learned a lot from talking to Lauren. So I think that was my favorite part.
Yeah, echoing Kiara, I think talking to Lauren, it put a face to the company, and it made it a lot more personal because she was so passionate about what they were doing and how they were innovating. And it was just really, really an amazing experience to be hearing firsthand all the things that they were trying to innovate and create solutions to, especially like Kiara said, with disabilities and things that I'm lucky enough to never have dealt with. So it was just a great immersive experience.
Thank you so much. And I feel like that's a really great lead up to ask Lauren to tell us a bit about Dave. You've heard a little bit from the students and hopefully had the chance to read the Aim2Flourish story. But Lauren, I'd love to hear straight from you, what is Dave?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm so flattered. And I'm so glad I didn't wear too much eye makeup in case I started tearing up, just because, those were such wonderful words. And I really enjoyed chatting with y'all as well. And so, as you mentioned, my name is Lauren. I am the head of social impact at Dave, which is actually quite unique for a company at our stage and at our size. Typically, companies don't really, start investing in impact or corporate social responsibility, as it typically kind of shows up at organizations until much, much later. But this is something that we have, baked into the very DNA of the company. We are a fintech company based here in Los Angeles. So it's kind of nice being in Silicon Beach versus kind of Silicon Valley in a lot of ways. And we are literally, building a product that literally kind of like creates financial opportunity that advances America's collective potential. And what does that really mean? We recognize that, the traditional banking industry, the traditional financial services industry by design is very exclusive. It's very discriminatory. It's very predatory in a lot of ways. And some of the practices that banking and finance have done over the years have created these massive kind of pockets of access for so many people. Kiara, you mentioned if you have a disability, or if you live in a rural area, or if you were formerly incarcerated, or if your family's undocumented, there's so many barriers to accessing some of the most basic banking tools that we tend to kind of take for granted. And so that's a problem. That's really a problem, especially as we've seen so much kind of come to light after 2020, which is a year I just try to forget because it was just so crazy and traumatic. But, there's so many ways that we've now, as consumers, as potential employees at companies, as investors even, are looking for companies and the private sector to do better and to do more and to build better businesses, and to really move away from the kind of status quo that kind of got us into a lot of these messes in the first place. And so when we think about when we think about what it means to kind of be a mission-driven, kind of customer-centric fintech company, it's really something that kind of causes a lot of people to scratch their heads, because they're like, well, why wouldn't you just want to be making as much money as you possibly can? And it's like, let's hold on. Like we can dispel this myth that there's this inherent tension between, a purpose or doing well or doing good for your, diverse ecosystem of stakeholders, not just your shareholders and investors, and also doing well for your company, for your business, for your employees. And I think one of the best indicators that, we're doing something right, kind of by dispelling that kind of myth of that tension between profit and purpose, is we're actually going to go public later this year. And so it's a really exciting time at the company because that's one of the biggest ways to kind of validate, your business model, and that it's doing well, and that it's provided some sort of appetite for the market to trade publicly on some exchange. And so as we think about kind of what businesses will continue to look like, hopefully, post 2020, and as we kind of continue to navigate some of our biggest kind of social issues, whether it's climate, whether it's access, whether it's financial services, education, healthcare, these are some of the ways that we can be thinking about, how to build a better business, how to have impact first, and mission orientation first. And to Professor Thiel's point, it's like, how do we make sure that we are tackling some of the biggest problems like inequality and access by the very core mechanisms of our businesses and the service and delivery of our products. So, yeah.
Yeah, wow. I can absolutely see why Kiara and Morgan had such a wonderful experience getting a chance to talk to you. Yeah, I mean, Dave is amazing at tackling so many issues. I am curious, Kiara mentioned kind of a special story about the founding of Dave. I know that's not your story, but I'm wondering if you might be able to share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So we have a really amazing founding team of wonderful folks. Our CEO and co-founder, Jason Wilk, is actually an LMU alum. He, has really been a serial entrepreneur his whole life. And so he started a business, I think, while he was actually still in school, and was like really kind of achieving a ton of success. But, entrepreneurship is really difficult, and it's tough. And there was a moment in time where, he was on, kind of a sub $30,000 salary as he was building his business. And, $30,000 does not go very far in Los Angeles at any time. And so, they were all experiencing these kind of moments of precarity where, you didn't know if your debit card was going to go through when you needed to get a cup of coffee to have a meeting with a potential investor or something like that. And so they had all kind of experienced this moment of just like that kind of dread and trepidation that comes with not having enough money in your bank account, go overdrafting, and then having what would have been a $4 cup of coffee now is $39 because you're tacking on fees. And I don't know if any of y'all remember, Kiara and Morgan, you might be too young, but I remember when banks would also just keep charging you overdraft fees until you basically paid the balance. So you'd end up with hundreds of dollars of just fees that you probably couldn't afford in the first place because you couldn't afford that $4 cup of coffee. And so it's just kind of opened up their eyes to kind of this really massive kind of problem in the banking system. I mean, banks were raking in, upwards of 9, 10, 11 billion dollars a year on the most vulnerable people because they were charging these kind of exorbitant fees on folks who were already living at the margins of kind of financial precarity. And so they saw it as an opportunity to not only, disrupt that kind of really predatory kind of practice, frankly, but also kind of, really tap into a really pressing need for so many people. I mean, I don't even want to calculate how much money my bank, I won't say their name, my traditional bank has made off of me in those years after college when I was just, a broke young professional. So it's a really pressing problem. I think we're just starting to kind of get to the scratch the surface of how to kind of shift those practices. But yeah, and it really kind of opened a can of worms in terms of, what does it mean to actually disrupt this space? Because unfortunately, we've seen that there are alternative financial solutions like payday loans or auto title lenders that kind of came into communities in the wake of banks, either divesting from communities or overcharging customers. And that's no better, because those are really predatory organizations that are making kind of access to liquidity very expensive and very detrimental to your credit and to, your financial wellness. And so really finding that way to, disrupt a predatory overdraft system and disrupt this kind of predatory alternative financial system was really the sweet spot that Dave kind of innovated in. So, our access to liquidity is no recourse, so it doesn't disrupt your credit. We don't kind of go after you. It's free. You can, there's an optional tipping feature where we leverage the revenue from tips to kind of give back to community organizations that really mean something to our members. We're really thinking about, what does it mean to kind of deliver a fully comprehensive suite of services for folks who are looking to have a better experience with their financial products. And certainly being digital first is something that allows so much more access to folks who might be in bank deserts or who might have no, access to no, like a brick and mortar banking store. And so, yeah, it's really fun to kind of keep exploring the ways that we can innovate from a product centric perspective, from kind of a strategic philanthropy perspective, like where are we investing our dollars to kind of bring more value to our community? And then also really think about, what does it mean to build a better business from the inside out as well? So things like diversity, equity, and inclusion and representation, and really up-leveling our leadership to make sure that our team looks like the communities we serve. So all of that is kind of part of our impact ethos. And yeah, as you can tell, I could talk about this all day long. So
No, I mean, it's wonderful. And it's, I've gotten to do several of these interviews, and I love getting a chance to talk to the business leaders, to the entrepreneurs, to the social impact directors. And it's not just, it's like you just said, it's not just that you're filling this need of financial inclusion, which is like in and of itself an amazing feat, but that, you're really building this company in this industry and meeting these needs in this industry that like hasn't had this sort of, social impact innovation in a really long time. So just, it's amazing. There was an aspect to the story that I was kind of curious about. So it seems like Dave, like the name Dave is meant to be and the app is meant to be kind of like very personal and kind of like really friendly to the user. Can you tell us just a little bit about that?
Yeah, I get this question all the time because sometimes people are like, well, why is your company named Dave? Who is Dave? Like, is that your boss? And I'm like, well, if I work for like a fuzzy bear, which is our mascot, then sure, he's my boss. But so Dave is our friendly kind of financial best friend in the form of a really personable and kind bear. And the goal is to, so kind of had a double play on words where, we wanted people to feel comfortable coming to our product and safe and can trust, the resources that we were providing, and also kind of have a different experience than, they might have with their typical Wells Fargo or Chase or Bank of America app, where it's like you're kind of indifferent at best when you you check your app when like on payday morning or something like that, but you're not like, oh yes, I can't wait to check my Bank of America app. It's not that exciting, it's not that personable, it's very corporate. So we really wanted our brand and our look and our feel and our tone and our voice to feel welcoming and inviting and safe, because there's so much stigma around kind of finances, and it's really stressful. It really is stressful. And then there's this kind of like secondary story too around kind of like, we really were going up against an industry that is very powerful, it's very big, and it has, really long-standing kind of roots and infrastructure. And frankly, it's founded, if we're really being honest, on when we think about kind of the origins of a lot of the kind of older banks in America, it's like, they have roots back to like the slavery times. And so when you're thinking about what does it mean to disrupt a space, you have to understand the history. You have to understand the why. Why is this space so in need of disruption? You have to be honest about what inequality looks like, for so many folks, and why. And so, yeah, we were, kind of the little David against these like massive Goliaths that, were being really predatory to so many people for so long. And so, here comes this little startup, that's been able to gain a ton of traction and really help create an entirely new space in terms of kind of financial service delivery. And so, yeah, the name is very interesting. We do recognize though that in terms of, I'm all about equity and inclusion, and Dave, when you think of Dave, you typically maybe think of like a certain type of phenotype or a certain type of gender, but Dave Bear is non-binary, and so they have they, their, them pronouns. So we're trying to be a bit more inclusive there. And so then it also kind of allows us to kind of have a really important conversation internally as well about kind of what other mascots do we have and what do they represent and how we can be as inclusive as possible. So, yeah.
I was just going to say, taking like inclusivity to like the absolute next level. So, the perfect Flourish Prize honorees for Global Goal number 10. I love it. Thank you so much to all of you. I don't know, Morgan and Kiara, if you have anything else that you want to add before. I can absolutely see the impact that getting a chance to talk to Lauren had. I could sit here and talk to her all day. So curious about the company, and but I'm so happy that all of our viewers that are going to get to watch this video are going to get a chance to hear about Dave, because just what an impact in the financial industry and supporting financial inclusion. But I want to give anybody else a chance that wants to jump in before we close things out here, if they have any final thoughts or anything that they want to add.
I just wanted to thank Lauren for speaking to us, and also Professor Thieves. Your guys' passion really ignited something in myself, and I didn't really understand that business could be so innovative, and that there's so many new and upcoming ethical and sustainable companies to look into and to really value. Like, these are very important topics we're discussing, and it's a really exciting time to be a part of. So thank you so much.
I also similarly wanted to say thank you so much. Just like Morgan, this project really reminded me why I wanted to go into finance. Finance can be viewed as kind of, the evil corporate thing at times. And this reminded me really why I wanted to be in finance, and to help everyone feel like they have financial literacy and make, money not so scary. And so I really enjoyed and loved working on this project. And I think Aim2Flourish is such a great organization for highlighting these companies. And obviously, as you've seen, Lauren is just such a great person to talk to about Dave, because she is so passionate. And yes, so I want to say thank you. And I'm really happy I got to work on the project.
And I just want to thank everyone. Lauren, thank you so very much for your work, the inspiration of your company, your availability to our students, and your passion. It's not just the work, but the way you speak and the way you invite our students and all of us into really this important work of serving communities. It's just so inspirational. And Megan, you can really see why this is such a powerful fit for our focus on business as a force for good, or to use the phrase from Aim2Flourish, to see business not as best in the world, but best for the world. And you really see an example of that. And I really want to thank and congratulate Kiara, Morgan, and their teammates. This is kind of a hard project because you got to speak to strangers, and you got to seek out and do all of this. And frankly, they're seniors and they got a lot of stuff going on, and they're needing to carve this in the middle of lots of stuff, and kind of behind the scenes, it's not always easy. But then when they get this opportunity, the power of the impact of the experience is just completely inspires. And so that's what you guys have shared. And so Kiara, Morgan, and your teammates, great work, and thanks for doing this.
Yes, thank you. I absolutely love having these conversations. Not only is it a whole nother level of like, you get to read the Aim2Flourish story, but then you get a chance to hear directly from the business leader. But I think it's really nice to see the student authors, to see the professor, and for the professor to get to hear directly from the business leader as well, because, we read the stories and, I get them published, Jeff gives grades. And so it's just a huge treat for us to get to have this conversation. So thank you so much to all of you, our Flourish Prize honoree group for Global Goal number 10, Reduced Inequalities. Dave, in the financial industry, financial inclusion. What a wonderful innovation. And our students from Loyola Marymount University and Professor Jeff Thies, thank you so much for being with me here today. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to continuing the celebration with all of you.